Shedeur Sanders throws for 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 picks. Yet Dan Orlovsky somehow claims Dylan Gabriel looked better. But when Arch Manning collapses on the big stage, suddenly the excuses start piling up. And today, I'm exposing every single one of them because this hypocrisy has gone too far.
The problem I have, you have the likes of Dan Orlovsky, went on ESPN First Take and hated on Shedeur Sanders in a way like no other by telling us in the audience that are listening to them that Dylan Gabriel put out a better tape than Shedeur Sanders when Shedeur Sanders made his preseason debut against the Carolina Panthers and Dylan Gabriel made his preseason debut against the Philadelphia Eagles. Despite the turnovers that Dylan Gabriel had and everything Dylan Gabriel looked shaky at, and what Shedeur Sanders did against the Carolina Panthers, where he threw for 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception, and also protected the ball. And Dan Orlovsky went on national television on ESPN First Take saying that Shedeur Sanders didn't show us nothing. Dylan Gabriel put out a better tape when he got his preseason debut.
Before we dive deeper, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a second of this unfolding QB drama. You know what's absolutely wild? Dan Orlovsky went on national TV and straight up lied about Shedeur Sanders, saying Dylan Gabriel had a better preseason tape, even though Shedeur shredded defenses with 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, while Gabriel looked shaky and mistake-prone. But here's where it gets spicy. The same Orlovsky who hammered Shedeur for holding the ball too long spent 5 minutes on ESPN defending Arch Manning's disaster against Ohio State, blaming Matt Patricia, Steve Sarkisian, and even coverage rotations instead of holding Arch accountable. The hypocrisy is so thick you could cut it with a knife. And that's why we're breaking down every lie told about Shedeur.
And let's take a listen.
That way, it looked like it was a big moment for him.
Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. You know, you're going on the road to the defending national champion playing against the defense that played remarkable. I would say this, Arch Manning's game looked the way it did because, number one, Matt Patricia.
And that's Shedeur Sanders. He's going to make the team. And every move that the Browns have made regarding Shedeur has set off Shedeur mania, Shedeur syndrome. People are championing this guy as if they believe he's Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Peyton Manning all rolled into one. Okay? And I'll give you a great example of this. When he didn't play on that potential game-winning drive in the Browns preseason finale, people literally, they went to their social posts. And these are people who I actually have some respect for and said things like, the Browns are...
Listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal shows exactly what's broken in mainstream sports media. They twist narratives, protect their golden boys, and throw real talent like Shedeur under the bus, and Dan Orlovsky just proved it. This all began with the Arch Manning hype machine when Paul Feinbaum compared him to Tim Tebow, and teams supposedly prepared to tank seasons for him. Even the Cleveland Browns front office showed up at that Ohio State game. But when the lights hit, Arch Manning didn't just stumble. He crumbled, overwhelmed despite every advantage money could buy. Meanwhile, Orlovsky mocked Shedeur on First Take, claiming Dylan Gabriel put out a better tape than him. But let's paint the real picture. Shedeur stepped onto the field in his preseason debut against the Carolina Panthers and delivered precision passing. 138 yards, 2 gorgeous touchdowns, 0 interceptions, calm, composed, and looking every bit like a franchise quarterback. While Gabriel against the Eagles looked lost with turnovers and bad decisions. Yet somehow, Orlovsky crowned Gabriel's performance better and even said, Shedeur didn't show us nothing, which is insane when you consider they tore him apart. It's a career-defining flaw. Fast forward to Arch's disaster against Ohio State, and suddenly Orlovsky turned into an excuse factory on Get Up, blaming Patricia's scheme, Sark's coaching, and even praising the Ohio State secondary, claiming Manning held the ball too long only because receivers weren't open. Wait, didn't he torch Shedeur for the exact same thing, calling him indecisive? The double standard here could win Olympic gold in mental gymnastics, and that's the rot in sports media. They pick their favorites based on hype and twist reality to protect them. Meanwhile, Shedeur keeps proving doubters wrong, showing poise, IQ, leadership, and toughness every single week. And instead of celebrating it, they drag him down to lift their golden boy. And think about this. Shedeur didn't have a billion-dollar family name behind him. He didn't walk into cushy situations with media hype shielding him. He had to carve out respect by making every throw count. And that's exactly what he's done. Yet here we are, listening to analysts twist themselves in knots to explain why Arch Manning's collapse somehow isn't a collapse, but Shedeur's brilliance isn't enough. And that right there tells you who they're really rooting for.
You never showed the plays where the receivers was wide open, where he missed the receivers that was wide open. It's just a lot of smoke and mirrors. But then y'all get on Shedeur Sanders and slander him, talking about he holds on to the ball too long, and that's why he gets sacked. See, that's the problem that we have. Keep the same energy, man. I understand that everybody is trying to build and hype Arch Manning up, but you got to keep that same energy when it goes for certain people, such as Shedeur Sanders. You shouldn't have to hate on Shedeur Sanders and try to derail Shedeur Sanders to make these people like Dylan Gabriel and Arch Manning look superior to Shedeur Sanders, which we know that's not the case. And see, in this situation, you're talking about, oh, he had nowhere to go with the ball. That's why he's holding on too long. See, you get away with that when you're talking about Dylan Gabriel and Arch Manning. But y'all don't keep that same energy with Shedeur. When y'all talking about all his problem is he holds on to the ball too long. He takes too many ill-advised sacks because he holds on to the ball too long. And then you're making excuses that, oh, it was Matt Patricia, Steve Sarkisian, bad play calling. Y'all making all these excuses for these players that y'all want to hype up and control the narrative. But y'all want to just come out blatantly hating on Shedeur Sanders, knowing that Shedeur Sanders is the real deal. If you give Shedeur Sanders the keys and let him run the offense, you'll see what you're going to get. But to do the things that y'all do on national television, especially you, Dan Orlovsky, you was a quarterback. You know what the quarterback position entails. You know what it takes. And then you're making excuses because Arch Manning is just not, he's not that great, man. He's not that great. And y'all building him up. Paul Feinbein talking about he's the best thing.
And the insult doesn't stop there, because Orlovsky even said Arch Manning won't face another defense as sophisticated as Ohio State. Really? So the supposed #1 pick can't handle one elite defense. What happens when he hits the NFL where every defense is elite? Meanwhile, Shedeur has been facing pressure in tight windows his whole college career, thriving under it. Yet he's the one still needing to prove himself. The truth is, Orlovsky's problem is that Shedeur Sanders is everything they wanted Arch to be: arm talent, IQ, leadership, composure under fire. And watching Arch fold like a lawn chair exposed the media's lies. Orlovsky, as a former quarterback, knows this better than anyone. So his bias isn't just wrong, it's dishonest. But the reason is simple. The establishment media invested years building the Arch Manning myth. So when reality crushed it, they doubled down on excuses instead of admitting they were wrong. Yet Shedeur is grinding in the shadows, delivering week after week, leading like a pro, and making the plays that win games. But instead of giving him his flowers, they try tearing him. Act blind. So here's my question. How long are we going to let mainstream clowns disrespect real talent while glorifying overrated prospects? How many more contradictions before people call out the bias? And when Shedeur Sanders is hoisting Lombardi trophies while Arch Manning is still struggling, will you remember who had Shedeur's back from the start? Because at the end of the day, hype fades, talent lasts, and Shedeur Sanders is shouting the truth from the rooftops while the media whispers lies about their golden boy. So drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button if you're Team Shedeur, and make sure you're subscribed because we're not letting these lies slide anymore. Shedeur Sanders deserves respect, and we're here to demand it. Because at the end of the day, football isn't about family names, it's about results, and the results are screaming louder than the excuses.